Hello, hello, and welcome to the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, and that man over there, Seth Price, coming to us live from the Price Benowitz offices in Washington, D.C. Of course, Seth talks Price Benowitz as well as Blue Shark Digital, where it's SEO for lawyers all the time. Seth, how's your week going this week?
Going great. I was in Nashville, and we're right now, as this is getting ready to go in Atlanta for Chris, which should be pretty over the top.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny. I'm sitting at home doing my thing, loving my life, being at home, being able to interact with people, but you love being on the road. And so it's a wonderful thing. So Seth, we got a lot of stuff to cover in this week's show. So I'm going to sort of rapid fire a few things, run them by you. We've got some great interviews. We actually have 2 interviews this week, folks. We're going to get to hear from Dennis Yu, who was in with Seth, and they did a one-on-one last week. So we're bringing that to you as a recorded segment. And then we're going to actually also come back and do something about ERTC at the end of the show. But first, one of the things that came up in the group in the last week or so was a question of how do you remove yourself as the choke point in the office? So Seth, I'm going to throw you that question first because you've been dealing with it. I have my own opinion on it, but how have you been able to get yourself out of being the choke point?
I think there are 2 pieces to it. The first is labor, right? Having a person that is at the level that can make meaningful decisions. You know, the operations person, whatever you want to call it, everybody has a different term, different name, but an ops person, I think, is the first essential step, because it's the point person that does a lot of things that are not law and not necessarily needed to be done by the owner with the advice and consent of the owner. So that's first. The second, I think, is a psychological piece. And we've talked about this a number of times, but like taking the Andrew Finkelstein mantra, which is you have to get used to mediocrity. And not that your ops person is going to be mediocre, but that the more stuff isn't part of your dominion and control, that's going to break down. If you want things perfect, you're going to keep it very tight. As you get larger, there are going to be issues. And when those issues happen, there's going to be issues where things aren't done to your satisfaction. You just can't allow it to go so far that it causes an ethical issue.
Yeah, and the thing for me is that I think a lot of people in our audience are dealing with this struggle because it's sort of like a hierarchy that you've got to be able to address. And maybe this is something that we can investigate in a future show. So I want to put this bee in your bonnet right now. But we often talk about having our office manager, right? And then above that would be a firm administrator. Then above that would be your COO, your operating officer, that type of thing. How do you know when to move from one to the next level? Because that's something that is an issue for me right now as I'm growing, is that I've sort of come to a realization that I need to hire a kick-ass COO, you know, MBA, that type of thing in order to get me, because I've gotten us to this level. I don't know, to quote Harlan Schillinger, I don't know what I don't know in order to move us to the next level. That's why I'm engaging with the Fireproof team. I know you have as well. And I think that that's what's necessary to move my business forward. But there's a lot of people who aren't at that point yet. So maybe they have a paralegal who also acts as the office manager. But then at some point you got to go to firm administrator, which is that's their job.
I think it's a continuum. I really do. I think that the admin that's developed can get very far. And the ops person with training, something I'm going through right now using Bill Biggs, trying to take an operations director and make them COO. And the bigger question I see talked about a lot, it's a whole other show, is do you promote from within or do you bring from outside? I've seen parallels both ways. I've generally had more luck promoting from within, but at the COO point, you may not have anybody who can make that jump, in which case it's also real money and it's a different beast. And are you willing to give up that dominion and control? Because that's the other question, just like a lawyer may not want to give it up on substance, are you really going to allow that to happen? And the easiest way for that to happen is to not be there. I think that, probably COVID and working remotely has allowed you a little bit less of a grip than when you were always there every day with everybody surrounding you within the physical office.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something, that needs to be a consideration as you grow, as you scale, is when you are going to bring in these people. And this is a conversation that we can have.
Look, in a microcosm,
bring in a marketing director or a firm administrator. I mean, both are critical parts of your team.
I would say that there's more that can be outsourced on marketing generally. Again, pick your poison. You could argue things different ways, but I was about to say, as a microcosm, I've seen the disasters of bringing somebody in from the outside who doesn't hit your core values. I've had the disaster of somebody being promoted from within who's not ready for prime time and was never getting there. And we've made a lateral hire, which I never thought I would ever do, who's been amazing in the ops role, and is why I'm investing time to move up. And it's not like either or. It's figuring out, what do you need? What type of marketing are you doing? If you're purely on TV, for example, you may not need as much in-house because you're paying somebody and they're getting their 15%. If you get big enough and your spend is such, you're like, no, I don't want to pay that outside. I'm going to have somebody manage everything from within. But I think it's a building blocks. But for you personally, the number one thing to get you out of that piece is somebody who can take care of, today we have a lawyer in one of our satellite offices that's not responding in the way they need to attorneys. And I'm delegating to somebody. Does that interaction go as well as if I did it myself? Probably not, but I'm also keeping myself clean so this person doesn't hate on me. They're hating on, we just had a disgruntled person that left, and the hate was not towards me, it was towards our head of ops. And I was like, you know what? I like that.
It's nice not being on the firing line.
I'm not. In fact, I'm the guy who's trying to negotiate the exit. So I think it's, one piece at a time, knowing that one size doesn't fit all. I just met somebody who was part of a group where they said you have to bring in a high level experienced law firm administrator. And the truth is, no, you don't always need that. If you want, like for you, if you're not looking to build and grow, and you want to maintain, hypothetically, within reason, you're going to make new office, but the same Jay playbook. Could you get away with an ops person rather than a COO? Do you need that MBA? It'd be nice, but do you want somebody who's just going to execute on your game plan? It depends on where you are and how much you want to move forward versus how much you want to execute on what's already inside your mind.
Well, and these are conversations that people having, early on in the process as they're starting to scale. Because, you need to have a vision going forward. And I think if you don't have that vision going forward, you're going to sort of be hamstrung. You may not necessarily make the decisions at the right time. And then you're playing catch up. And I got to tell you, I got to give you credit. Well, 4 people don't want to give you credit. But on Thursday and Friday, I actually sat down and listened to a whole host of calls on our reception and intake team. And we got rid of 4 people because after training, after spending time with them, we invested 6 months of time, money, and, we ran them through some very simple sort of tasks. And I said, I'm not at a point now where I can trust these people in this job anymore, and we're about to head into our busy season. And so, like, literally, I had a meeting with my core group and my core group found a solution, a temporary solution that they could live with by taking some people off of other tasks. But I got to tell you, folks, if you're not listening to your intake, and you're doing it regularly, like at this point, I now have it in my calendar to listen again in 3 months.
Well, no, not in 3 months. You need to have a member of your team that's listening to them on a weekly basis, and then take 3 calls from each person and have those listened to weekly. And then they can pull those out and flag the worst or the best for you. But no, not quarterly. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things is I'm understaffed, and being able to do that stuff, I need to hire more.
I got somebody. It's unvetted, but I got a potential cost-effective look for you out there that might work. But no, what?
But see, that goes back to my lead-in. I'm the choke point right now in solving problems.
But if there was somebody else there, but look, you're answering your own question. It's like it's having that extra layer because you're not doing it, and by thinking quarterly on recorded calls, absolutely not. I mean, look, especially if you just found 4 wrong, have you tested the others?
Well, the other ones are knocking it out of the park.
Right, but you say that, but there's still coaching and development. Like, right. How many people do you have on intake in theory before you got rid of 4?
We had 12, we're down to 8.
Right, but at 12, like, hire 1 more person. Sole job is to listen to calls and bring you the best in the. I mean, like, you don't know when stuff is breaking. Look, I'll give you something we're struggling with now. And I want to punt to the next call, but I would love to get people's feed to the next show. I want to get people's feedback. You know, we noticed the actual on phone time for a number of our people, it was actually in our injury division, was not as high as we would have intuitively thought. And what's crazy is I went at people like Gary Falkowitz, there's no data out there. How many minutes a day, assuming you're busy and you're not waiting for the phone to ring, should the average person be online? Now, they may be answering chats or emails, but assuming the phone calls are a substantial portion of what you're getting, what would you think intuitively, if in an 8 or 9 hour day, should somebody actually be speaking to somebody on the phone, if you added up the minutes, like WorkSnap style?
6 to 6.5 hours.
And we were seeing a number less than that.
Okay.
And the question is it bad on us, or is that normal? And again, there are certain things that, like, again, it's not like immediately like, oh my God, the sky is falling. I don't mind. I really, during COVID, we went from 12, 13 domestic to 20, including a substantial number overseas or Latin America. And the piece that, in a way, I don't care, in that I know we're slightly inefficient, but by using overseas labor, it allows it. It's more stable. People aren't being burnt out. But what is that number? I mean, 6.5 may be unrealistically high based on what I'm seeing. But what is that number? And, look, we don't have class 1 call center stuff where the moment somebody hangs up, the next person answers, right? It's not as tight. At the same time, the question is, you build and build and build. And at some point, look, the good news is you can get rid of 4, hopefully, and still not lose a step. You'll hopefully be okay.
Right.
But
we're actively hiring now, and that's.
But how long before they're actually in play?
Right.
You have 8 people for the foreseeable future. It sucks. Will it be somebody there in 2-3 weeks? Maybe. But the better answer is it's a month.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to throw to an interview that Seth was able to do with Dennis Yu. And so, Seth, why don't you tee it up for everybody so that they know what's coming?
Yeah, so Dennis is a really interesting guy. I've known about him for years. He's, a long-time SEO guy, goes back with me to, I think late 90s, doing all sorts of stuff, was inside of Yahoo, had all sorts of credentials. And of late, he's done a lot of speaking, talking, and putting together products. And I think this is why you're going to like it, where he's talking about, paid social, how to leverage it. His mantra is $1 a day, take what you have and boost, and, fascinating stuff. And, works with some of the biggest names in the industry, figuring out how do you get people into your video? How do you A/B test, things along those lines? A fascinating guy whose mind is just, it's just awesome to watch him in action. So I think people will really like this interview. Originally broadcast on the SEO Insider, but thought it was special enough for our audience here.
Awesome. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Hang tight. We're going to cut right away into the Seth's interview with Dennis Yu. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome, everyone, to the SEO Insider. We are thrilled to have Dennis Yu from Blitz Metrics with us today. Welcome, Dennis.
Pleasure to see you again, Seth.
Look, you have been everywhere of late, but I know that I've known you for years in the digital space. I go back to the late 90s and the first .com bubble in New York. You were with some of the juggernauts in the space. Tell me, what has your journey been?
I am not your ordinary search engine engineer or SEO or marketing person. I'm not a marketing person. I'm a search engine engineer. And I built the analytics at Yahoo 20 some years ago. And my job was to protect the analytics and also protect the search engine from all these people that are trying to manipulate our search results. So this is before the days of Matt Cutts and these sorts of public representatives, because search engines weren't really a thing until Google basically popularized it in like 2005, 2006. So I was going around the conference circuit 20 some years ago, speaking as Yahoo at these different conferences before it was, technically, I think Bruce Clay invented the term SEO. He's a good buddy of mine, but we were calling it webmastering, if you remember. It wasn't SEO. It was building websites. And before websites, it was bulletin boards. And before bulletin boards, it was freaking. And I was doing freaking 30 plus years ago. So
right. And a lot of it was figuring out, I remember back in the day, there were so many different search engines and figuring out what was going to survive. You had no idea. And we saw Alta Vista and Dogpile and even digital
equipment got into the game, and back then we're using, Mozilla. This is before there were even web browsers, right? I did most of my email using Pine on the Unix system.
Wow.
Like 35 years ago, I was doing that. Anyway, I don't want to tell you how old I am.
No. So I get it. So
I'm a search engine engineer, okay? And I've seen all these other marketing people come into the space trying to tell everyone how search engines work and all this black box voodoo nonsense. And Seth, all I want to do, especially for attorneys that spend a lot of money, have no idea what's actually going on, I just want to turn the light on in this dark room. And if all the vendors scream, and if all the SEO people look at each other, or they look ugly, is it my fault that they're ugly, that I turn the light on?
No, I don't think at all. I mean, look, as a player who bridges both the legal space and the digital space, that's part of the reason I started an agency. I felt that there was so much fairy dust and silver bullets and this and that fundamentals, rather than tricking the algorithm, giving the algorithm what it wants, high quality content, authoritative links, if you're willing to play ball and figure out what they want rather than how can I sort of pretend to give them what they want long term, I think you're a lot better off.
Yeah. It's amazing how much.
Talk to me. The thing that you've been spending a lot of time with, that we are having a lot of fun with here at both Blue Shark and Price Benno, is video social. If you go back historically, social's been one of those things that for law firms, I don't want to say I poo-pooed, but there was a lot of people selling widgets that were utter nonsense.
Yeah,
$3,000 to $5,000 a month to have happy red hair day, or take your kid to work day posts that got limited visibility, no engagement. It just seemed nonsense. And I always wanted people to hold back their resources and say, put that in paid search, put that into organic, rather than the sort of fake stuff. Now, if you have your own channel or you really love social and you go all in, you can do a lot of things in a lot of different verticals, but everything has changed over the last months and year with TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. Part of it is a feeding frenzy. At some point, they will close the unlimited world that we are in, and it'll monetize like many other things. But talk to me a little bit about where we are right now and where you see us going when it comes to the power of video social.
So the traditional people that do paid search and organic search, who go to PubCon and other conferences that you and I speak at, they still unbelievably view it as a text-driven world, as in you hire article writers to write content around different topics, distribute that on your blog, distribute internal link juice, blog posts, buying links, creating signals because you're distributing through Google News sites and doing Google stacking. I get that. That's a hands-off, client hands-off, VA text-driven model, which still kind of works. There's, a lot of SEO firms will say, I'll create 50 articles per month and put them on DR50 plus sites.
And if you want to be in search results currently, that's the game.
It still works, but that's not really where everything's headed. And
no, I'm not saying where it's headed, but there are two things you're always doing, right?
Let me tell you where the shift. Here's the big shift, because there's a lot of technical details that you and I as insiders can geek out about. It's now a video first game. Even Google has said it's a video first game. What does that mean? It means it's not a text first game. It means you as an attorney or the intakers or the receptionists or the clients or whatever are making vertical cell phone style videos as your primary source of content. That content gets transcribed and turned into blog posts, not text first, where let's write about all the different things you can say about motorcycle accidents in city name and auto generate those web pages, which are terrible, as you know, right? I mean, how many different ways can you talk about motor vehicle accidents and truck driving accidents?
No, it's been the bane of our existence, in that the law is
garbage content, and you know it, and it's low quality, and you could talk about how it fools the algorithm, and you can stuff the keywords still and buy triangular links through link laundering networks and all that. That's all BS. What matters is telling real stories of real customers, how you take care of them, what you like to do in the morning, showing yourself as a human, not because you're singing and dancing on TikTok, but because you're telling meaningful stories.
I get it. Look, I'm invested heavily in it, but I also see that we are also at an intersection, right? Things are changing. You're talking about where you're going. There's also current cases and where are they coming from? Let me ask you this, because this
TikTok
is
has more web traffic than Google does.
Understood. But
young adults under 30 do more searches on TikTok than they do on Google.
Understood. But when they're looking for a lawyer, are they going to TikTok or are they going to Google? And that's, but that wasn't my point. I'm not
trying to. The point is they're not looking for a lawyer. They've already decided based on who they know. They don't care where you pass the bar or how many cases you have or that you're tough and, you're Daryl Isaacs and you have a hammer. They don't care about that. They care about, can they relate to you? And that's where social media comes in. It's not something you hire an agency to do because it's a video first thing where you have to make cell phone videos. It has nothing to do with your hair or wearing a nice suit with all the books in the background and the degrees. That's the thing with social media.
But look at all the different areas of law, right? You got in my world, right? You have PI, you have criminal, you have trust and safety, you have family, you have immigration.
Yep.
Look, I get, and you're an evangelist. You're telling me where we're going to, and I get that.
No, that's where things are now.
But they are. They look, a percentage are, but people are still looking when they need a search. And look, I'm one of the unique middle-aged people that loves TikTok. It's so freaking addicting. It finds your areas of interest and it digs deep. And I sort of study it. I see what other people are doing, and I see that there are people doing cool, informative videos out there. But it's at its infancy. For the moment, and again, you're saying this is changing quickly. Google is still not indexing it that way. We've seen it. Do you remember a couple of years ago, where Google said, hey, we own YouTube, we're going to push video really hard. And they put you could basically stack the search results with nonsense videos by spamming the titles and putting them in. It was
YouTube Shorts and all that, for sure.
Right.
I was the product manager of YouTube Shorts. We were in Austin actually filming together at Digital Marketer, and she said that they created $100 million creator fund to be able to make incentives for people that are making videos in short form fun ways, because Google's always tried to do a social network. We won't list all the different ones they've tried over the last 15 years.
I was so disappointed. I loved I thought the technology was better than Facebook's. I loved the way it could chat, video chat, all of that. And, it just turned out it was people like you and me sitting in there waiting for it to pop, and it never happened.
Right. Because it's people that are too technical making things for engineers like me.
So talk to me this is a real thing that attorneys struggle with, which is, okay, they're not you. They don't have a massive following. They don't want to do the Me Too stuff, which I think is that we don't have to sell anybody on that. They can have somebody follow them around with a video camera and do stuff, but
you don't have to have a D-Rock.
No. Just with an iPhone. I've learned that lesson, right? I had a guy with a video camera follow me around, did nothing compared to a 23-year-old with a ring light. Much better.
It wins every time. I've done it too. I've hired these kids, these 22-year-old kids, and they use our techniques. And I'll tell you, it's not a secret. And they'll make a bunch of what TikTok calls lo-fi, like not professionally edited sorts of videos that outperform when a professional camera crew who's won different sorts of
couldn't agree with you more.
$50,000 professional thing. They're bringing red cameras, all the intimidating equipment you can imagine. And the kids that out of the University of Louisville and Dr. Karen Freeberg's program, for example, a bunch of my kids come from there, or other schools where they're implementing our program. They're making short form little videos, and they do it for local business owners. They do it for restaurants or whatever it is. There's a bunch of schools that use our stuff to start student agencies so that these kids can get real course credit instead of just reading a book and writing an essay, which is ridiculous. And these kids are beating all these professional agencies. These are kids with almost no experience. And it's not because they inherently understand social media. Oh, if they're a 20-something, they understand TikTok. Just natively, like they were born with an iPad in their hand. No, that's the thing that old people like us like to say about these kids. Here's what they're doing. They don't suffer from this thing called rambling old man syndrome. That's the number one thing. You're smiling. That's the number one thing that kills professional services in social media. You know what rambling old man syndrome is and why that's so bad?
No.
You and I suffer from it greatly. What is the number one thing on TikTok? You're following all the experts. What's the number one thing that drives your watch time and virality?
You tell me.
The hook, the first 2 seconds of the video. If you don't get to the point, if you're not interesting in the first 2 seconds, it doesn't matter. I'll give you a proof point. So I was at TNC last week and I ran into the video editor of Alex Hormozy, who's the #1 trending entrepreneur on the internet right now. He also is the video editor for Grant Cardone. There's a lot of people that pretend that they're the video editor for Grant Cardone or Alex Hormozy. This is the actual guy. And Ryan McGinn, he's awesome. I filmed a 2-hour interview with him while I was there. And here's what he does. And by the way, don't think like just because it's for Alex Hormozy or Grant Cardone, oh, I can't be like that because I'm not Grant Cardone. No. This technique, listen to this. They'll film a primary video about a topic, long form, like here's what to do when the police stop you, right? Or here's what you do when you get in a car accident, or some kind of area, something sharing expertise, which attorneys are normally pretty good about. And then they film 5 hooks. What are those? Those are introductions. Here's one thing you need to know when the cops pull you over. 3 things the insurance companies don't want you to know, or whatever it is. Like these are a hook. Is the video, is that what you say in that video, direct to face. And it's the same thing as like a subject line in an email copy or the title in a web page. And how important is that for like a blog post, the title? It's half of it, right? It's more important than the content itself. So it's the equivalent of like open rate or click-through rate, view-through rate on video is all based on that hook, the first 2 seconds. So they'll film 5 of them after filming that explanatory content. And then they'll film 3 calls to action. Contact me and I'll help you out. I'm the hammer and we fight for your justice. Or, I've created a free guide for you. Come check out what, download, whatever it is. Or, agents standing by, we're here to help you. One call does it all. Whatever it is, like some kind of call to action, the selling part. So main body, 5 hooks, 3 calls to action, combine them all. Now you have 15 pieces of content, right? And then guess what? So I already knew about that because that's what we've been doing. And it works really well for even like nobodies. You don't have to have blue check marks and have millions of followers or whatever. What he did, and he logged into the TikTok for Alex Hormozy and he showed me. We're looking at the stats. I'm one of the few people that I could say this because I've looked at the stats, like, wow. And he'll post all 15 at once, Seth. All 15 versions at once. Yeah, but I thought you're only supposed to post like once per day because it's going to wear out the algorithm or people are going to get tired of seeing you or whatever it is. No, you just post them all at once. And he showed me something that he posted just 2 hours ago. And he had all these different versions. And one of them did way better. And we looked at these different ones and they all look about the same. We played a few of them. They look about the same to me. But we looked a little more carefully. And he said, when there's a difference, if you look carefully, you'll always be able to find that difference. It could be that the one that outperformed, we cut out that initial breath in the beginning, and just like you have to cut out all the dead air. That's why there's all these jump cuts, right? Or it's just the way you said something, the intonation, or it's the background music, or the way you turn the camera just for a moment, or the expression that you made, that micro expression, there's always some reason. And I've talked to the top TikTokers and folks in Instagram Reels and whatever, and they all confirm the same thing. It's that the slightest little thing in the first 2 seconds. Because if you don't, here's the obvious thing. If I lost you on that or whatever.
No, I think it's brilliant. What you're basically saying is we're going from A/B testing to A to G testing. And
it's in the first 2 seconds. You're testing all kinds of stuff in the first 2 seconds. The big caption you have is the text over the top, right? Which is the subject line, headline, whatever it is. And so everyone is testing those first 2 seconds. If they're not with you, if they skip past you, scroll past you, in the first 2 seconds, it doesn't matter how good your call to action is. It doesn't matter how good your advice is. It doesn't matter how funny you are. It's that first 2 seconds. And the reason why 99.9% of small businesses, especially law firms and people dispensing financial advice, especially doctors, people who are really well educated suffer from this more than anybody else. So doctors and lawyers. And I have a lot of doctors and lawyers as friends. And I see this and it just hurts me when I see this. They have rambling old man syndrome because they can't get to the point. They use all these medical terms and legal terms and they, these disclaimers or whatever, just freaking get right to the point. My friend Sally got her husband was killed by a truck. And when she told me this, or whatever, like that's a good hook, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, what happened? I got a $10 million verdict from my friend Jerry, but you know what I really admire about Jerry? Well, what? What do you really admire about Jerry? Right? The hook, the first 2 seconds. These lawyers can't freaking do the hook.
Why do you think I abandoned the video guy and I have a 23-year-old with a ring light? Because they tell me what to do. My instinct is wrong. I know that. And that's why again, people, and part of it is, think about it. So the average lawyer syndrome person or doctor person isn't spending their time on TikTok. After you spend a little bit of time on there, you intuitively you get it because you're making those micro decisions as to whether you're flicking.
And how fast are you making those when you're scrolling, Seth? How much patience do you have in deciding whether you want to watch the rest of that video?
To me, what I find amazing about TikTok is that they have figured me out so freaking well that I spend more time because most of the time it's giving me compelling content. I'm sure if I could think back to when I first got on, I was flicking, but they said, oh, he likes the show Hamilton. So if we were behind the scenes, he likes tennis. He likes baseball, whatever it is. I like magic tricks. If they once they see you, so I find that yes, but as that algorithm gets better, I am not a great example of it, but I know exactly what you're saying. And again, everything you're saying is crystallizing because I'm living it. I'm watching my team do this, and that's why humbly when they say, "Hey, do it this way." I'm like, sure, because I know that my instinct may be able to get somebody top of a certain Google algorithm in one place, but that the way that people are, and it's not, look, you're saying that it's not just age, it's not like but it is sort of how they were raised in that they don't have all of this baggage with them that would, because I tried to get some of my interviews like this, said, oh, I did these cool interviews, Dennis, I'm just going to turn this into a TikTok. And it doesn't work nearly as well as if we created a separate video where we're doing that. Somebody's putting the hook of what you're going to be saying next.
That's true, because this whole thing, like how long are podcasts? Like 45 minutes or something like that. That is a movie. Now, what do you need to do to get people to watch the movie? Have the movie trailer, right? Any major movie, you name it, to get people to watch, there's the movie trailer. So Seth, what's in the movie trailer?
And I think that as the light bulb's going off for me, it's something you wouldn't believe what Dennis you said here. Something like that, which would get, which would get somebody in.
You grab the highlights, right? Yeah. I saw the Top Gun. Tom Cruise came out with the Top Gun. I'm like, okay, he's old now, but it was amazing. I went to the theater with my mom, and we both loved it. But the thing is, the reason why we watched Top Gun was because we saw so many reviews. And friends that said, oh, I just saw Top Gun and it was amazing. And we saw the trailer. And, when you watch the trailer, it sort of gives away, hopefully they don't give away too much, but they show the explosions and the main scenes.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm not going off script here, but I know for myself, if a trailer gives everything away, I'm done because that means they didn't have enough good stuff to get me in.
Yeah, but that's because you're super intelligent. So these lawyers like you that are super intelligent, I don't mean it in a bad way. You guys are so smart that you don't realize the average consumer is you're 8 steps ahead. Your ability, your verbal skills, you're overthink things.
No argument.
You are right. You're right. Yeah, people like you. But remember, we're talking about people who get in car accidents or they're looking to buy a new house. You're just over assuming. You're you're not making oral arguments in front of some judge or whatever.
No, of course not. And
you're way too smart. That's why it's hurting you in social media, right?
It was the same thing with figuring with emails. What's going to get something open? You have an email, but what you're saying is, what is your ray line? The ray line of your video is today's currency.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know I'm very fortunate that we're going to see you at Blue Shark in the coming days. I can't wait for you to be able to talk to
in 2 weeks, flying from Pakistan to Dubai all the way to DC to come see you. It'll be cool.
I'm honored and touched. And it sounds like we'll be either sharing the stage or crossing paths in Austin for PubCon. What are you doing between DC Blue Shark and Austin PubCon?
We are training up millions of virtual assistants in the Philippines and Pakistan and Kosovo. in the US, we would call these third world countries, but they're all learning how to repurpose content. They're taking the hundreds of videos, these short little 15-second stories. I have the best-selling book right now in social media on Amazon, by the way. Literally Google it and see, or go to Amazon and see. But we're training up these VAs to take those videos, transcribe them to articles, chop them up into TikToks and Instagram Reels and tweets and Facebook stories and all that. That's what's called repurposing. And then turning them to ads and using what I've been famous for in the last 15 years called the $1 a day strategy.
That's
taking
awesome.
your content and paying for Facebook and Google and LinkedIn and TikTok and Snapchat and Twitter and whatever to show your content to people in your city. And that's how you have alignment with social networks.
And I get it, because that's the home run. And that's been.
I'm not trying to get there organically or virally. I'm not counting on trying to be viral. I'm trying to generate business.
Do
for
you
the local
subscribe to the idea of testing it organically, see what works, and then putting it behind that?
And so the $1 a day strategy is about boosting a post, meaning it started out organically. It didn't start out as an ad.
Right.
And so if I put something out there organically, just like I just told you with Alex Hormozy, 15 posts, all posted at the same time, one does the best, I'm going to put money on that one. And I might make, 10 other videos about different sorts of things. And I might think I know which one is the best. I'm wrong every time. But the one that performs the best is the one I'm going to put more money on. And I'm going to allow it to run for $1 a day forever or $10 a day forever, because it's the same algorithm behind a boosted post as it is that governs the newsfeed. This is true on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, pretty much any.
You're saying a boosted post with a geographic radius.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things that I know early on, way back, somebody, this 10 years ago, somebody's like, we're going to do a Facebook, we're going to do a giveaway of a camera, like a flip camera, when that was all the rage, if you remember that. And I was all excited. Bought the camera, and I paid somebody some money to do this thing. And I had all these people signing up, and they were all excited, but nobody was in my market. The idea is you're not checking your common sense at the door. You still have a goal. And this isn't, as you're saying, get rid of the popularity contest.
It's not even relevant.
Yeah.
Fine, you give away a flip cam. Who's that going to attract?
No, again, I learned that
want
lesson.
a free flip cam. Yeah. Great.
But let me ask you one final thing, which I'm curious of your thoughts on. So old people like me, we do these cool podcasts. I have two, one on law firm growth, law firm blueprint. I got this, the SEO Insider. What is your best advice? Because a lot of middle-aged lawyers like myself have podcasts or other YouTube content that's not, is not TikTok friendly. What is the best way? It sounds like you're working on a team to do this. Can you take your middle-aged long form content and make it compelling, or does it need to be sort of done from the beginning?
You can. The thing is, remember, we have to distinguish between the movie and the movie trailer. So we put all this effort into the podcast, which is the movie, this whole conversation we've had. But then most podcasters are guilty of this, except for the people that know what they're doing. They will then, at the end of their podcast, record a bunch of hooks with the guest, because it's fresh in their minds. Now, maybe initially in the planning, you had an idea of what we were going to talk about on the SEO Insider podcast with me, but we actually went in another direction and covered some other topics. So the best time to record your hooks is at the end. If you're writing an article, for example, I've written thousands of articles. You write your introduction at the end, and then you put that at the front. You don't start by writing the introduction, right? Everyone knows this. Right. Every author knows you write the beginning at the end, right? So if you have long form content, whether it's Zoom or in person or whatever, it doesn't mean it can't be used for TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or whatever. Here's the biggest mistake they make is they don't repurpose the content, meaning push it to other channels. So you might take this and put it to YouTube, but why wouldn't you transcribe it using a tool like Descript into a blog post and submit that as a press release to Google News syndicated sites? Why wouldn't you take highlights and put them on TikTok? Why wouldn't you link between related blog posts where we're talking about people that we know? Why wouldn't we? And there's so many different ways to repurpose the content. And so most people, they don't have a video team or virtual assistants to chop things up and do that. These people are making $30 an hour.
That's awesome.
You make the content, which is great. That's step 1 of 4. So just because you make the content, you're barely even there. You write a book. Just because you finish writing the book, you're only 1 of 4 steps. The second one is you have to edit that content. not you, because we don't have time for that. We have people at $3 an hour that do that all day long. Then you repurpose it, meaning you post it. Once it's been edited, then you post it on all the different channels. You make that content once. You don't have to make content just for YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or whatever, because it's the same algorithm across every channel. I can go on to the, if you want to geek out, I'll explain why it's the same algorithm between, you know, Amazon and Spotify and what, they're all the same algorithm, okay? Based on what users are doing. So the third is the repurpose. And the fourth one is to boost, to put money against it, targeting just people in your city if you're a local practice. And most people do the first step and they miss the other three and they wonder why they don't have success. And they say, well, I don't have millions of followers. I can't go viral. I'm not singing, dancing well enough. Or I need to have some young girl like who's attractive dance in my video. No, that's wrong, wrong, wrong. It's because you're missing the other three steps. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thanks.
So in our waning minutes, let us have you do 3 or 4 hooks. What are the hooks going to be when we take this, we chop it up and we put it out there into the video algorithm?
I'll give you a few examples. And video editor, you can obviously, this is not a continuous interview, so chop this up as you see fit. Lawyers, Seth and I talk about the biggest mistakes you guys are making with SEO and social media. Come tune in now. See, stuff like that.
Take 2.
You know what the number one thing is that kills really smart lawyers on social media? It's called the rambling old man syndrome. And Seth Price and I talk about exactly why that's hurting your social media in ways that you don't know. Come join us now.
And the final one.
You want to know what an original search engineer has to say about social media? Seth and I cover exactly what goes on. I think it's going to find, yeah, nah, see, that's why you got to take multiple cuts. Yeah, because I didn't say that right. See, I'm starting with the hook, which is the first 2 seconds. Then I'm giving a little bit of knowledge. But
I'm following you. Look, I'm going to let this all air. I want people to see the creative process. I love this. Yeah. This is, I'm eating
literally,
this
is what we do. And I've been coaching Jake Paul on how to do this. And this guy has got billions of views, but even he is a student of the game in this particular way. So yeah, you guys are seeing right now what it's like when you, most of the time you see the finished product. Whatever you're seeing on social media is whatever the winner is, but you don't see all the basically air balls that we're putting up there, right? You saw me throw an air ball just a minute ago. Well, that's how it is.
No, but absolutely. So West question of the people out there, if you are a student of this, understanding that lawyers are not them, who do you like? This is the most famous with them. Who do you think is doing this really well right now that you would like recommend people emulate?
Oh, well, Ali Awad's a friend of mine and I coach him, but a lot of people like, I don't want to be like Ali Awad. I'd look at people like Ethan Ostroff, who is doing more. He's not as charismatic. He's just giving advice. Hey, do you use Roundup? Are you a user of Roundup? And do you have this kind of cancer? Contact me. I might be able to help you. Do you live in this particular town with this coal mine? And did you drink the water and get some kind of disease? Contact me. I might be able to give you some justice, right? We see if we can help. Just simple things like that, straight to the point, not this rambling on and on and on thing. Like literally, can you say something in just a few seconds? That's what this exercise is about. That's what these young adults are all about. They don't want to hear you go on and on and on. You need to use simple words. Keep it simple.
Anybody outside of legal that you think are...
Justin Martin is a real estate agent. He sold 500 homes last year in Denver. He's the #1 agent, I believe, in Denver. And what does he do? He's highlighting his family life. They live on a lake and they go jet skiing at night and they do marshmallows or s'mores by the fire. But he's also making stuff like, hey, check out this house. It's going for $1.2 million. And let me tell you why I think this is a good deal. Or check out this other house. It's got 3 bedrooms and it's in this part of town. And it's an up and coming part of town because just across the street, they're building a Whole Foods. So he's... now is actually the right time to buy a house because interest rates are going up. And while you're always waiting, or here's why I'm not worried about the housing market going down. It's because this, and this. And did you know the Fed just increased interest rates from this percent to this percent? Well, let me tell you what that means about how that affects inventory. Are you looking at buying and selling your house at the same time, and you're worried that if you sell your house, you'll be caught in between and not have a house to move into. Here's 5 things you need to do to not get caught in that situation. This is what he's doing. And he's got 70 agents on his team, and they're all making short little videos like this, all selfie style videos, not professionally edited. And that's driving them tons of leads, and they're selling tons of houses because of this. Oh, another one, go to YouTube and go look for Living in Dallas. And these guys buy and sell houses in Dallas. They're another real estate agent, full disclosure, they're also a client. And they're talking about, hey, Flower Mound is the number 6 fastest growing community in the United States. And the reason why is because let's do a little tour of Flower Mound. So here's this part of Flower Mound, and here's the park, and here's where this new shopping mall's going. And the Dallas Cowboys, their practice facility is up here in this particular town, and check this out. And they're literally just giving tours all around Dallas, what it's like to live in Dallas. And they're generating, I mean, they are getting millions of views and all that, but their goal is not to be YouTube famous. Their goal is that when people are looking to move from Los Angeles because they're tired, they're leaving California because they don't like all the whatever. I'm not political, okay? These people are leaving California for various reasons, and they're going to other places because they don't want to pay taxes and all that. And these guys, their videos show up. They're just killing it. Now, I audited their channel, and are they celebrities and are they like good on video? I mean, I guess they're okay. I don't think they're any better than you or me. These are just normal people, and they're just making content. They're not super charismatic or super attractive. They're just making content, but they're making content in the way that we're talking about. That's the difference.
Look, this
you don't have to be beautiful. You don't have to play the guitar. Okay.
Well, I appreciate you. This has been awesome, enlightening. I hope our audience got as much out of it as I did, because I just thought it was great. Can't wait to see you in person. And just keep it going. The energy and the excitement here is infectious, and the lessons learned are certainly valuable ones. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Seth. And what I'd love to see you do is maybe right now record a couple hooks to talk about why should an attorney spend their valuable time listening to the conversation we just had.
Tune into our video and hear Dennis Yu give you what's next in video. Don't love that. First take.
You keep going. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not even the words that you say. It's like how you say it. Because exactly. if I was just looking at this, I'm thinking, all right, I have lots of things. Like I would love to get more sleep. I'd love to spend more time with my family. I'd love to go exercise. Why would I want to spend this amount of time with Seth and Dennis?
You thought A/B
You got to really convince me this is worth my time. Right.
You thought A/B testing was cool. Imagine if you could test 15 videos at once. Tune in and find out. These are the pieces.
Yeah.
Multi-purposing your content. If you're not doing it, you're missing out.
Yeah. You want to see how the pros doing it, how the pros are doing it, and how you're not? Seth and I are going to save you a ton of headache by showing you exactly what to do.
Got it. Well,
yeah.
Dennis, thank you so much. Hope
Awesome
to have you back on the SEO Insider real soon.
Yeah, we'll do one in person. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
All right, Seth, that was some great stuff from Dennis. And, the thing that's interesting about it is that some of the stuff that we were talking about, a couple of years ago with FirmFlex and with our social super system is find the stuff that people engage with and then put small dollars behind it. People come to it and they're like, oh, I'm going to have to invest $5,000, $10,000. You could do some of this stuff relatively inexpensively because you're doing it on a micro level, but getting massive engagement.
No, he's just absolutely. Look, fundamentals are fundamentals. They work. I like the way he articulates it in a way. I hope it was useful for you. I know the audience is going to get a lot out of it.
Awesome. Now, what I'd like to do now is I actually got a phenomenal news from my team in that one of our ERC credits was filed September 28th, and we're expecting to get $50,000 back from the IRS on an amended 940 return. And that's just for 1 quarter of 2020. We have the other ones that are getting ready to go out. And I know you guys are doing the same thing. And so I think there's opportunity here. And if you didn't catch it the first time we ran it, I want to rerun our interview with Rebecca Sheppard all about ERC and how much it could matter to lawyers and people who are even just starting out their firm with 1 or 2 people, because there's money that's on the table that can make significant investments in a firm administrator, in an operations person, in your marketing or whatever. And if you miss this opportunity, once it's gone, it's going to be gone forever, right?
No, absolutely. So it's and there's nuance to it. Again, it was supposed to be either or, PPC or this PPP, and then see where my mind is. But very, very excited. I think that, and there's nuance. I would encourage you. I know you went through one of your providers, to sit down and get a consultation with somebody to see, is there more than what? When I saw what went into deciding where to draw the line, it was fascinating.
Awesome. All right, folks, hang tight. We'll be right back with the interview with Rebecca Sheppard.
Welcome back. We're thrilled to have Rebecca here. Rebecca, last time we sat down and spoke, we were all focused on PPP. People had a lot of time on their hands, right? We're sitting home, the world's coming to an end. What do we do? And the government was putting out their olive branch. We thought that 2 rounds of PPP, for those Jews in the audience, Diana, that would have been enough. But yet there is more. Tell us about this tax credit play, and what do people need to know about it? We'll have links in the forms here for people to be able to sort of get help. But tell us, what do people need to know about this?
Absolutely. So ERC, or the Employee Retention Credit, was actually available in the CARES Act, which gave us PPP. But at the time, you couldn't use the 2 programs together, and PPP was much more beneficial. You were getting, at one point it was 15,000 an employee, and it went up to 20. And the ERC for 2020 was only $5,000 an employee. And if you couldn't use them together, it didn't make sense to spend any time on it. So we all focused on PPP, and we had a big boat. Everyone was focusing on PPP, and then they started changing the guidance and changing the rules. And our boat got smaller and smaller as people were trying to figure out the different things. And then in December 27th, Congress realized we were still in a pandemic, and that businesses were still hurting. And so the rules changed, and they said, okay, you can use ERC and PPP together. You just can't use the same dollar twice. And we're also going to expand the credit. So first they expanded it to an extra 14,000, then they added an extra 28,000, and they came back down to 21,000 through different series of legislation. But essentially, you can use it for up to $26,000 per employee if you're eligible for all periods, which is amazing. And it really allowed us to focus on this program and get clients the Employee Retention Credit. Now, originally, people were just looking at your revenue. Did your revenue go down? And CPAs are like, oh, if your revenue didn't go down, then you're not eligible. You're not going to be able to get this program. And that's kind of when we were in this big boat, and they weren't really paying attention to the different rules that they were coming through. And it's incorrect. So there's 2 ways to qualify, 2 ways to become an eligible employer. One is if you had significant gross revenue decline. For 2020, you need 50% decline quarter over quarter. And then for 2021, when they expanded the credit, they also made it easier to become an eligible employer and made the decline in revenue 20%. So if your revenue went down 20% for quarter 1 of 2021, you're actually going to be eligible for quarter 1 and automatically quarter 2, which is just pretty awesome. It's a small decline. Now, this decline has nothing to do with COVID. You could have closed an office, a partner left, who knows? I had clients that closed 3 locations of their business in January of 20, which made them eligible for all quarters because all of their revenue went down by the requisite amount because of that location change. It's not tied to a COVID program at all. Now, if you don't qualify in gross revenue, and we tell you to do that first, because if you qualify in gross revenue, you don't need to do the second piece of analysis. If you don't qualify on gross revenue, say your revenue went up or didn't go down by the amount you needed, you can still qualify based on a restriction or a partial restriction of operations. Now, the easiest way to think about that is think about your restaurant. The government said you're essential, you're open, stay open, serve the people in your community. But you can't actually open your dining room. You can't actually have people come in and sit down and eat the way they did in 2019. So in essence, what the government did is restrict the way you operate your business. So whether or not you did well in carry out or not, the government came in and said you can't open your dining room represented more than a nominal portion of your revenue or hours worked in 2019, you're going to be eligible through that period of restriction. Now, the way this works for law firms is similar in that there are some law firms like tax lawyers. I can still do my job while I'm home. It's not a big deal. Working remotely is a comparable medium to using my office. But there are a lot of people who litigate and go into court and have jury trials and all these different things. And the government put a limit on the ability to do that. They put a restriction for most people. You could not have trials. You certainly couldn't have jury trials during this period of time. And if that revenue represents more than a nominal portion of your revenue or hours worked in 2019, you can be eligible for the employee retention credit. And this is huge. It really does change the game for lawyers, because a lot of lawyers, maybe their estate and trust practice did really well, but their litigation practice didn't. Or maybe the litigation practice actually did fine because they have 2 years worth of stuff in the pipeline and they're actually getting paid on work that was done a year and a half ago because of settlements or whatever. But they actually weren't able to generate new revenue because they weren't able to file the lawsuits and go into court. And so now the revenue's doing worse in 2022, which isn't the rule, right, for the revenue reduction. And so these people are going to be eligible throughout the period of court restriction. And it's something that, CPAs are really missing the mark.
Right. And to me, one of the things that I found complicated, I almost look like a credit card bill. You think you're fine and you show it to somebody and they're like, oh my God, there are all these junk fees that have built up over time, meaning you don't know what you don't know. But for me, it's the part that gets complicated. The reason why I turned this over to professionals was you're not eligible, as you said, for the PPP portion, right? Because those people that got money for that, God bless. And at the far end, there's a point where it tails off where you're not eligible at the far end because the courts are now reopened and you no longer have those obstacles. But it's figuring out what is that middle ground, and then how to maximize it, because there's some stuff that's really obvious, courts closed. There's other stuff that may be less so. And again, things that I know that you guys at Frost have worked on, but if Jay gets his business through certain networking activities and those are shut down because of government regulations, potentially there. So my point is, there's stuff that's finite that I know is pretty obvious, but there seems to be a lot of areas that is gray. And obviously no lawyer wants to be in the place where the IRS is coming back and really coming after them. At the same time, it's making sure that because you get one bite at this, and what is it, a 3-year period that we're dealing with to deal with it? To
file the return. So it's due by April 15th of 2024, the way payroll tax returns
understood. But for me, every time you make a change, you're going back and modifying old return. I don't love that. So it's going to happen, but if you can minimize that by getting it right up front, it means less look back, which to me is valuable, because every piece that reduces risk of doing something out of the standard deviation. So I guess, talk to me a little bit about some of the ways that you've seen, because some, as I said, some are pretty obvious. Courts are closed, can't do your business. But I know that you guys have been successful in finding a whole bunch of different ways that people have been affected by COVID that might not be immediately intuitive.
So some of our clients are nonprofit organizations, and they might have a big gala. And maybe their big gala was set for April of 20. And so they weren't able to gather and get their revenue that way. Or, a doctor's office or a dentist's office where they were required to have 6-foot social distancing and certain sanitation procedures. Well, that's fine. You're like, okay, well, that's not a capacity restriction. You just have to wash things every, 15 minutes or half an hour or whatever. But because of the way the practice operates, it actually limited the amount of patients they're able to see per day, which represented more than a nominal portion of their income or their hours worked. So there are a lot of things that you want to look at and see whether or not that is something that that you would be eligible. Right. And I'll say this way, there's a lot of people doing this, right? People are popping up overnight, trying to maximize money, and who knows whether they'll still be there in 2 years or not. But people are overclaiming a lot. People are counting things all the way through the restriction periods. If you're not eligible, there's rules about aggregation, owner wages, and all these different things. And they're not backing that stuff out. They're not backing out the PPP wages. And there's going to be a time where in 2 years, there's going to be an issue, and whether or not this company is going to be there for you, and whether they're going to say like, okay, this is how we calculated this for you. You might have a real challenge. So I would definitely, if you're going this way and you want to do the ERC, and you're going through like a payroll provider or an accountant, make sure they're giving you a work paper that's showing exactly what the ERC wages are, the PPP wages are, the FFCRA wages. I mean, there's so many programs, making sure you're not counting dollars twice. And then, we provide a legal opinion letter that says like, we think you're eligible through this period. We're going to explain it and then put the orders with it. You want something of that scale, whether it's like a full legal opinion letter or not. You need something that's going to show why you are eligible if you're using restrictions to get there.
Well, look, I appreciate it. It is mind blowing because you want to be aggressive, right? It's there, but at the same time, you want to know,
right.
And because the last thing you want to do is get a claw back years from now where you're just like, oh my God, I don't have this cash that's spent. So look, Rebecca, awesome. We'll let people know how to get in touch. But more importantly, once we get comments, Jay, from the audience, let's have Rebecca back on to sort of get more finite with some, people in blue states, I think, have many more opportunities generally, meaning we saw so many restrictions. DC was so overly regulated about what we could and couldn't do well into COVID that I think that people, looking for those different places, stuff that I saw outside of law for people that use trade shows in order to do their business, that those things were shut down. Many different restrictions that are there that may not be intuitive, but at the same time, not going crazy and making sure this is something within the standard deviation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.
Obviously, Seth, I think this is valuable content. That's why we wanted to bring it back into the show, because I think it's something that people need to hear about. And it's all about getting the right advice at the right time. What are your takeaways?
No, it is an unbelievable, not very much talked about thing. During PPP, people were desperate. They were home. Now we're sort of, spinning and making money and things are, rocking and rolling. So you don't think about it as much. But if it's sitting there and you're eligible for it, silly not to. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. I'm happy to sort of talk you through my perspective. It's a continuum like everything else. And I think that the key is to make sure that you get what you're entitled to, but not pushing it beyond the limit, because the last thing you want is an audit.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to stay that. Okay, so last question I have for you, Seth, before we get on our way. Another issue that came up in the group this week was, what is the best way to find an attorney nowadays? Are you finding it?
This should not be a throwaway at the end. Let's make this the kickoff. I mean, there's no, I want to say depends. There's so much, and it's so hard. And like, there are positions I've had out there for 2-3 years and not find the right guy, and then some guy randomly stumbles in. So let's give this.
Well, are you a firm believer in the always be recruiting?
Yes, I have a recruiter. I have overseas deputies below them. My attitude is, the moment you start using outside recruiters, which I sort of held off for years, now feel like it's part of the mix. The moment you're using them not to have your own recruiting to compete against the outside recruiters, is just giving money to the recruiters. Again, one position, who cares?
Okay.
But if you're in growth mode,
okay, so let's take a step back, and this is something I think we can do in like 5 minutes. Okay, this is I'm a solo. I need to hire somebody to support me. Do I pay
it's not 5 minutes, Jay. It's everything. Look, our last hire from a lawyer, not last, but one of the last hires was somebody I met. I got out of bed early, went to a breakfast at GW, which was like a dating breakfast of networking. Like, they forgot the students slept in. They forgot to tell people to come. So they're like 6 students. I meet one woman. It seemed like a wasted day. She came for coffee. 3 years later, she ended up working for us. It is every which way. It's going to the bar association event where you're at the booth and you're like, hey, here's a referral. Can't refer? Do you need a job? Like, I mean, again, it's basically a hardcore networking, as well as LinkedIn, as well as Indeed, as well as getting everything to it is a constant. If you, again, one person doesn't feel that way, but getting the right person to partner with you. And this is why it's a longer conversation. This is what I want to sort of kick off. So we'll start this. other way to get people, right? Do you get a law clerk during school? Do you get somebody right out of school? Do you hire somebody with a year of experience? It's a baby version of what we talked, or a different version of what we talked about before, when it was right immediately or laterals, but we're struggling ourselves internally because you go too early, there's turnover, they don't know what they want to do yet. You get right out of law school, they may have, or the good people may already be taken, like my dating life, and then thankfully waited a while and found somebody. And then finally, you have the idea of the lateral, where maybe they're bad habits and what's there, but at least they know they want to do what you want to do, or they're saying it to get the job.
Right. That's a lot there. So you packed it all in. You made it work. All right.
But seriously, let's kick off with that next week and give it some air.
Okay, I love this. I love the idea of that. Okay, that's fantastic, folks. That's going to do it for us this week here on the Law Firm Blueprint. Thank you for spending your time with us. Of course, if you want to take us on the go, you can find this show and all of our past shows anywhere podcasts are available by searching up the Law Firm Blueprint. And please remember to give us a 5-star review. Of course, we're live here every week, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. If there's something that you want to hear in the show, please let us know in the show notes down below, or make a comment, and we will make sure to address those topics. Talking about choke points, that came from the group. Talking about hiring, that came from the group. Folks, we want to engage with you, so please engage with us. If you have any questions, please reach out to either Seth or myself via DM. We're always available on all the major platforms. Seth, any parting words?
No, excited for a great week, and can't wait to get back at it next week.
Awesome. Folks, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.